This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Skywalking through classic Marvel. Skywalking through classic Marvel comics.
At last, beyond the movie, beyond the galaxy. This is the tagline on the cover of each issue of the Marvel Star Wars comics from 1977 and beyond. I am Richard Wolosky, and I want to welcome you all to Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics. I am here to take you through the story, share memories of reading this series as a kid, and to make sure you younger fans realize there are many parallels and foreshadowing to the current Star Wars films and TV shows, and more on that in a few minutes.
Well, I am Sarah, and this is the show where we take you through each issue of the vintage comic series from the 70s and 80s. So I'm going to give you my fresh perspective since this is the very first time I'm reading these comics.
And I'm Randy Martinez, your host for Let's Make a Deal, the only show... Wait, wrong podcast.
Wrong podcast.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Totally sorry.
No, that recording's at 5 o'clock, Randy.
Sorry. This is Randy Martinez. I am a Star Wars artist, an official Star Wars artist, and I am here to also share my memories, or what I can remember, from my childhood and from growing up with these awesome Marvel Star Wars comics. And I'm going to give you my insight as a professional artiste and my point of view as a crazy artist.
Well, great. Well, want to welcome everyone back after this 4-month hiatus. Summertime is always a busy time for everyone, especially you, Randy, with, 15 conventions under your belt since we last put out our last show?
Feels like it. I've been all over the place. Now, you just told me before we started here, it's been, how long? 4 years? No, 4 months.
4 months.
Feels like 4 years. It's been 4 months since our last broadcast. So
Yes.
Lots happened. And the biggest thing is I moved to San Diego. Denise and I moved from Hollywood to San Diego. So that's been the big thing.
Into a whole new world, I'm guessing.
A whole new world. Like different podcast again. Sorry.
Wait, whole new world. Is that a song?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
I say in jest. Of course I know that song. All right, now, before we dive into this issue number 15, Star Duel, we have a few things to discuss, and I can't wait to dive into this. Now, Sarah, Randy, I've mentioned many times before on this show that there are many callbacks to these vintage Star Wars stories, to the new films and TV shows, and both of you laughed at me. You laughed maniacally. I'm looking at you, Randy.
Well, then we should put that into continual tense. How do you put that into continual tense?
And we laugh at you.
There you go. There we go.
No, well, you know what? I'm going to make you eat that laugh because
It's endearing.
let's chew on this for a bit, shall we? In the Star Wars Lego Freemaker Adventures series, there was a mention of something we've heard from these classic Marvel Star Wars comic issues. In the episode Escape from Coruscant from the Freemaker Adventures, Lieutenant Valeria mentions, get this, she mentions the 5 fire rings of Fornax.
Yes, indeed.
As referenced in issue number 3, titled Death Star, and in this very issue we are about to discuss.
Freemakers, just what in the 5 fire rings of Fornax are you doing here?
Lieutenant Valeria! Hey, how's it going?
Now, I remember sitting on the couch watching this with you, Richard, and like that comment went by, and it took us a few seconds, and we're like, wait, you stopped, and you like rewound the tape, and you're like, wait, what? She mentions this. It was like something we had heard out of a dream, and then we remembered it was from our classic Marvel comics.
All right, now I had tweeted out to Bob Roth, one of the creators of the Freemaker Adventures, hashtag eat this, Randy, and I said, is this pulled from the classic Marvel Star Wars comics? And he did reply back and say, you know what, it could have been in my subconscious all this time from reading the comics, and that's how I came up with it. So he did say he didn't exactly go through the comics and go, oh, I can make a note of this and put it into an episode later on. It was something that he had floating around in his head that he thought this would be the perfect time to place this in.
So if you want to compliment Bob Roth on using this reference, you can tweet at him at Automatic Gravy.
I thought Bob Ross was dead.
Oh, no, Bob Roth. R-O-T-H.
Bob Roth. I was like, wow.
But I love Bob Ross.
Really knows a lot about Star Wars. That's famous.
Yeah, whole different artist.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, that's funny.
Bob Roth, not
Yes.
Bob
Yes.
Ross. He could be related somehow. I don't know.
So, Randy, any comments so far?
Well, we'll give one to Richard in his column there. One win for that. It's not out of the realm of the creators in doing that, but I feel like I get like a sort of a point where the guy wasn't sure. He couldn't tell you for sure.
All right.
But I'll give you that. And then for the fact that, Pablo's there and Pablo knows all this geeky stuff too. So, and he throws that out there all the time. That's his job.
Yes.
So he's going to throw that there, and it sounds cool. So sometimes I think that, this is where I'll give Richard the point where every once in a while something kind of stays through the 5 fire rings of Fornax. So you got 3 F's out of the 5 words there. So that still sounds cool.
So we have a big scoreboard in our recording studio. So let's mark 1 for me, and we'll give 0.3 of a point to Randy and Sarah.
Well, let's go on to this other thing that you found, Richard.
Yes. Now, just a little while ago, an image was revealed on the Star Wars show on StarWars.com, which is the new dreadnaught Star Destroyer from The Last Jedi. Now, I saw this, and I thought, this looks really familiar. And I realized, wait a minute, we've been seeing this in these classic Marvel Star Wars comics. This is how the artists have been drawing the Star Destroyers, as just like a big, flat
Triangle.
pizza wedge.
Yes. That's what it looks like. And the back is like the bridge. It's kind of like the pizza crust.
Yes, and just so happens that we're going to be talking a lot about these Star Destroyers in this very issue, because this issue does feature Crimson Jack's stolen Star Destroyer, which looks just like this new dreadnaught from The Last Jedi.
Wow.
It's just, to me, it's just that the Star Destroyers they're just drawn however they feel like drawing them, because it's not consistent throughout any of the comics, the way that they're drawn in any one of the panels. So I don't know. I mean,
well, they had redesigned the bridge, but the front of the ship, the main hull, is completely flat, whereas the Star Destroyers we see in the films, they have more of a shape to them.
They have more of a 3D triangle shape.
Right. And
whereas these are more flat.
Totally flat,
triangles.
just like we're seeing right here in this issue.
On page 272 of the omnibus. So what's interesting about this is because, comics are obviously 2D flat, and when artists have to render these big 3D ships, I think they just turned out flatter in general, and so now they look like this new dreadnaught. Which I'm wondering, I wish they would show a picture, like StarWars.com released this image and said it's 25,162.8 feet. Well, unless you see an image of that next to, say, a Super Star Destroyer or a regular Star Destroyer, you really have no concept of how big this is compared to those others.
You know what? There are pictures of this dreadnought next to other Star Destroyers, and this one just engulfs it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so this is so much bigger.
Well, cool.
I don't know, because I could say I went to Chicago to Illuminati's and had a piece of pizza that was inspired by Star Wars comics number 15 Star Destroyer, and I know that's for sure. You can make connections to anything.
If you want to say that, then fine. But I do believe the artists on the new Star Wars films, they had read the classic Marvel Star Wars comics. They're into fandom, so they're going to know what these ships look like. And if you see something like this in a comic book, why wouldn't you say, hey, this could be useful sometime? We shouldn't just leave it in these pages and let it be forgotten.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll make this compromise. And also this will just keep the debate going. When we see the back of this thing, the back of this big dreadnought,
yes,
then we can debate, because with all the drawings here of this, and I'm looking through the comic right now, number 15. The thing that is consistent is the propulsion jets in the back, or whatever they are, the rockets.
Yeah.
So that's consistent in the back of the Star Destroyer as inconsistently as the things are drawn.
Okay.
So if the back of this thing looks like this, Richard, I'll give you the points.
That's a fair point.
This is a good day for me. This is a very good day. All right, you know what? Let's leave that right there because I want to believe it all ties into the classic Marvel Star Wars comics.
Okay.
Well, plus maybe I'm being not as buying that because I want to believe that there's something original being created for these new movies, not just taken from everything else.
Well, from that point of view, they would have just designed a whole new ship that looks nothing like a triangle Star Destroyer.
Which maybe they should have, but yes, yeah, you know.
Okay, yeah, that's your viewpoint as an artist, and it's very valid. Very valid. Now, let's see how valid this is. Speaking of valid, and Randy, I can't wait to hear your response to this. Now, this was brought up on Charles Lippincot's Facebook page. Charles Lippincott was the head of publicity on Star Wars in the 70s, and as we all know, he always has lots of things to say. Now, this was on his Facebook page on August the 22nd, and it reads, at the Terrificon Marvel Star Wars comic panel, probably the most important point I got out of it was Howard Chaykin bringing up the impact of the Marvel Star Wars comics on the comic industry. Howard said that prior to Star Wars, there were artists and creators, but after Star Wars, it was all about branding. I never thought of comics in this way, largely because I'm not a creator, but Howard is right. The artists and creators were, to a large degree, unimportant for the Marvel Star Wars comics. What the fans wanted was Star Wars. They wanted anything Star Wars, which meant that, for the individual artist and creator, they had become obsolete. They were there to service the brand. They were there to create product for Star Wars. If I remember Howard's words right, for Howard, this change of direction was a negative downturn. And you have to turn yourself into a brand. You got to work on pushing yourself. You know that there are lots of other guys and gals in the artist alley, and somehow you've got to come out on top.
100% correct.
Please elaborate.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely true, and interesting enough how we are including ads into the podcast here now. As I've been going through the ads, you can tell there's a significant amount of new comics that come out after Star Wars. Let's leave Star Wars alone for a second here. But they started making Godzilla comics. They started making Shogun Warriors comics. G.I. Joe comics were coming not far behind that. So you had and then other movie tie-ins. So the branding is definitely in the comics for ads for other comics about movies or things that were not traditionally superheroes or original stories. Now bring it back to Star Wars. Of course, that's the whole thing. Is that it proved them? Star Wars proved to them that you could put a dead squirrel on a stick and wrap it in cellophane that said Star Wars on it, and you could sell it. It's the truth. Disney's the same way. You can put Mickey Mouse on anything, and it will sell to somebody. So they realize that. Now, the comic book industry has not been the most solid business ever. I mean, it never has. It's never done super, super, super well. So they're always looking for something to get them over the top, to go to the next level. Unfortunately, what it seems like is when they do go to the next level, in this case, the branding, it brings in a whole other set of problems that they have to overcome. So now Star Wars comics, Godzilla comics, G.I. Joe comics are now competing with traditional comics like Spider-Man and X-Men and things like that. And when people are tight on money and they can only buy 2 comic books versus 5, where they're going to spend their money on. People are starting to spend their money more on the brands that they know and that they like to collect. So a lot of comics that were around at the time. We can even look in the back here, this comic here, where they're advertising for comics that you can get sent directly to your home. They have Amazing Spider-Man still around, Avengers still around, Captain America still around, Captain Marvel, nope, Conan, nope, Daredevil, I don't know, Defenders, gone, Doctor Strange, gone, Fantastic Four, gone, Howard the Duck, gone, Human Fly, I don't even remember that guy, gone, So, I mean, there's a whole list of all these comics that you used to be able to get of superheroes, all gone. And they all went about the same time because they started realizing we got to start putting Star Wars out there and start putting out Godzilla, G.I. Joe, and so on and so on. And so I guess from the point of view of Howard Chaykin, who is an artist and a creator, it is definitely a downturn from that point of view, from the creative point of view. But it just is what it is, you know, and you adjust or you die.
Well, so I have a question because, like, why Star Wars in particular made this change? Because I know before that, Spider-Man was huge when
because
Stan
they weren't
Lee created
spun off
it.
from movies.
Oh, is that?
And that's what
it?
Since Spider-Man started as a comic book,
Okay.
they can be more creative and they can think in any terms that they want. Now with Star Wars, they've got to stick to the Star Wars universe.
Okay.
And now, in my point of view, it's like, if you're signing up for this job, you know what the parameters are, so why are you complaining about it? You know that you have to write in this one sandbox. And if you want to do your individual comic, well, do it, but you're just not going to do it as a hired artist as you are when writing a Star Wars story.
Well, you have to look at everything in the context of the time where it was. Let everything... So much in this world, I mean, take away from our, hey, that's cool, Star Wars is cool, but like so many things outside of that changed because of Star Wars, from movies to social things to comics and books and things like that. So before Star Wars, you had mentioned Spider-Man, Sarah.
Yes.
You know, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Captain America, they all existed in comic books, maybe a cartoon here or there, but they were still just considered comic books. And if you're into that, that's cool. And people kind of know Spider-Man from the whatever kind of, and it always just kind of had a ceiling to it. That comic book world had a ceiling to it, so to speak, in the public social whatever people talked about.
Okay.
But then when Star Wars came along, it's a movie and it's huge. And now everybody around the world knows what Star Wars is. And now they put a comic book about it. Now they put books out about it. And everybody's turning to that and buying it because also at the time, no VHS, no Laserdisc, no anything. You had to try to get your Star Wars from wherever you could get it. And so everybody, when they saw that, wanted a piece of that. Obviously, they still do. And so the comics, once, as we discussed, had just kind of started it on a fluke. They didn't think it was like, whatever, you know, just get it out. They obviously saw it and made a huge profit for their sales. So that changed everything. Now, to Richard, in terms of what are they complaining about, you got to remember that before Star Wars, these guys like Howard Chaykin, you know, the John Burns and the Chris Claremonts of the world, they were all in that comic book world that I was just talking about that kind of had a ceiling in terms of what people were talking about socially, you know what I mean, and what was pop culture. And so comic books existed and they still kept around because it depended on original stories. It depended on the creators to do something that nobody had ever seen before, sort of creating their own Star Wars in a way, as far as what the social effect was, but within their Marvel comics or DC comics. And it wasn't easy to publish your own comic back then. It was really, really hard. But that was okay, because if you're creative, you just went to one of the comic book companies, like you worked with them. So when Star Wars came around, it killed it for guys like Howard Chaykin, that's how their business was before that. Like I said, I'm probably going a really long way around in saying this, that before Star Wars, comics depended on creativity and originality. When Star Wars came along, like he's saying, it went completely to branding. So all of the skill set that these guys brought to comics wasn't needed anymore.
Now, I still have a problem with this because, like I said earlier, that they had this confined sandbox to play in. But as we're reading these comics, we're seeing that this sandbox is huge because they are going so out of bounds of what we know to be true in Star Wars that they can still be very creative with these characters as we're seeing.
They could.
They call it a negative downturn, I don't think is really fair. And I've heard Howard complain time and time again about having worked on Star Wars and how confining it is. Dude, you turned Darth Vader green on issue number 1. How confined were you?
And also, nowadays, I wonder what comics people are bringing up for him to sign. are the
it's all Star
majority
Wars.
Star Wars. So now, like, his legacy remains, and people know his name because he worked on the Star Wars comics.
But here's the thing I gotta tell you guys about. It's a really huge misconception, and thank you guys for letting me bringing this up so I can say this. It's a big, huge misconception that artists are doing the artwork that they do for the name recognition, for the fame, to get all these fans and things like that. In fact, I've come to believe and feel like if you're doing it for that reason, you're doing it for 100% the wrong reasons. You can't chase fans and try to do what they want you to do and try to get them fans, because they're going to get bored with you. The way that you get fans is just kind of a collateral thing. You do what you do, and you're going to connect with people, and those are what your real fans are going to be, because they can't wait to see what you do next, and they don't know what it's going to be. Anyways, so we don't do this for the strokes. The great artists don't do it for the pats on the back, and also going to where you're saying, well, it's still a huge sandbox in Star Wars, but it's like telling an artist that you can only use these colors, but you can create anything you want with these colors. That's all you can ever paint with or color with. It's like, why would you don't want to be limited by anything as an artist? So even though there's opportunities on a financial end, even though there's opportunities to do some creating, as a creator, you don't want to have anything that to get in your way, and or to be felt like all you can do now is, say, Star Wars, which I can relate with in a big way. I often want to get out and do things other than Star Wars. As much as I like Star Wars, there's a huge world out there. I don't want to always be doing Star Wars. I get really burned out sometimes by it, in fact.
Right, but if you agree to a job, then, in my opinion, if Howard Chaykin or any other artist agreed to do a Star Wars job, then agree to it and know your limitations. And when I say limitations, I still believe that those limitations were very scarce.
Well, yeah, when they first started. I mean, when we've talked about that. So I think when Howard Chaykin took the job, I don't think he realized a lot of these things until he was able to stop and reflect on it and realize everything that we're talking about. I've never heard him talk, but I've heard people say, like, man, he just complains about it all the time. Yeah. I wouldn't do that. Like, I'm being honest with you guys that I try to balance things out, and I don't want it to be always Star Wars, but I'm never going to complain that I'm able to do Star Wars,
Right.
That's his own choice, but I understand the sentiment of what he's talking about 100%. And he comes also from an old school place, like I was alluding to, that where creativity and everything's what comic books and art depended on, and especially now it depends on branding. And I grew up kind of between the two sides, the old school artist and the new way of things, where it's more branding, and you got to have a balance. Mm-hmm. If you're all branding and nothing, you're no substance at all, and you're just whatever. But if you're just all substance, you ain't gonna get any work.
All right, so before we move on with Star Duel, let's hear a little from this panel at the Terrificon convention with artist Howard Chaykin.
And for good fun, writer Roy Thomas chimes in about Stan Lee's involvement in the Star Wars comic.
Star Wars was the first comic book that really created in the fan population the concept of the brand, of the material as brand. I come of a generation that believed that talent is the brand. Okay, but Star Wars redefined the relationship to comics in a profound way, in that one of the things that the Lucasfilm guys were doing with that was confirming that brand. Okay, by that photo creation. I mean, let's face it, George made the money on that stuff by that wise move of holding on to all the licensing, and the licensing is based on likenesses in a profound way. The comic book enthusiast today tends to respond to the brand, and my job as a talent is to try to convince you on a one-by-one basis that it's the talent is who makes the material, not the material made. Okay,
you remember when they did that? I always remember that when they did that paperback version, putting all 6 issues to a paperback, the only names on the cover were going to be George Lucas and Stan Lee, because Stan was writing some little introduction or something, and it just, I love Stan, but it just drove me up a wall. And I went into him and I said, I want Howard Chaykin's and my name on that cover along with you and George. I said, we're the people that did the work. All Stan ever did was say, okay, you can do it. That was the rest of it was all Charlie and me, basically. Charlie coming to me, and then me could kind of at Stan, and Charlie doing it. We worked kind of as a tag team, and it worked out very well. Stan's main thing was saying that he approved it because Alec Guinness was in it, which wouldn't have sold any comic books on a street corner, even though Alec Guinness was great.
All right, now let's wrap things up here and get into our story. But thank you very much, Randy. I was really looking forward to hearing your opinion on this.
Yes.
No problem. I love talking about this kind of stuff.
All right, now with that, let's move on to this issue titled Star Duel, or as it was called last issue, Showdown.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, there they go with their name changes again. All right, but first, Sarah, let's catch everyone up with The Sound of Armageddon, which was number 14.
Right, so before we go into number 15, we have to remind everyone what happened in the last issue. And this was when Governor Quarg and the Dragon Lords were still in battle. Han was believed dead after the crash, which enrages Chewbacca, causing him to attack Luke. Governor Quarg continued the struggle to pull down Crimson Jack's giant stolen Star Destroyer with his sonic jammer.
Meanwhile,
the Dragon Lords rescue Han and tell him that Quarg's jammer is driving the sea serpents mad and slowly killing them, so Han agrees to help if they agree to help him by salvaging the Millennium Falcon. Now the evil Governor Quarg, he has found Princess Leia hiding within the Millennium Falcon and plans on using her demise as an example to her friends. Only Luke rescues the princess, and together they bring a fatal end to Quarg and his sonic jammer. The Dragon Lords and those passing by in the space above the Drexel system can now live happily ever after.
Now, in this issue, with Governor Quarg's jamming equipment disabled, Crimson Jack's battle cruiser is fully operational and waiting for Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon so he can exact his revenge. However, the Falcon has been damaged by Jack's trusty first mate, Jolie. Now, Han has to make a deal that will exchange Jack's navigational charts, which were secretly downloaded by Chewbacca, with parts on Jack's cruiser that will enable a safe getaway for his crew, which includes Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, and the droids. How will this handoff go down between two space pirates? Stay tuned and find out.
Yes.
Now, this issue's Star Duel was released on May 23rd, 1978, and written by Archie Goodwin, artwork by Carmine Infantino and Terry Austin, coloring by Janice Cohen, and cover art by Carmine Infantino and Terry Austin.
Nice. So this was almost a year after Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. 2 days minus a year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Randy, describe to us what we're looking at on the cover of Star Duel.
Well, what we have here, what I like to call, is a very Frank Frazetta-inspired cover, meaning that the hero, Han Solo in this case, is actually facing away from the viewer, and the threat is coming towards the viewer, with the hero kind of in between the viewer and the threat. It's this classic thing that Frank Frazetta would do for many, many, many book covers, from the John Carter of Mars, and other series that he would do artwork for. So you have the back of Han Solo and his man butt facing you, firing away at Crimson Jack and his gang, coming at him with the Star Destroyer seemingly on its side, but it's not on its side. It's just in space because there's no up, down, sideways, or anything in space. It just is space. So it's just an interesting kind of a way. Now, to put a Star Destroyer. Now, I really, because I didn't really read these when I was a kid. I just looked at the pictures. I thought this was like some sort of a board game because of all the squares and stuff like that.
Oh.
And it reminded me of a video game also as well. So
you mean on the texture of the Star Destroyer?
Yeah. It looks like a big long wall almost going down. Like, what was that? Tempest. Remember Tempest?
Oh yeah.
I kind of remember it reminded me of Tempest a little bit. So maybe when I played Tempest, I thought of Han Solo firing against these guys, but I sucked at that game, by the way. It's terrible. So anyways, exciting. I think it's cool. It's very different, and you got a lot of the good elements. These are good artists, so the compositions are always going to be good.
Yeah. I especially feel you. The composition throughout this whole comic is great on many, many of these panels. In fact, I had a hard time choosing our favorite panel later. But on the cover, yeah, I agree. I really like the movement to this cover. It really draws you in. Like, Richard, if you saw that on a shelf as a kid, would you grab it?
You know what? I didn't know what composition meant when I was a kid, but I love the fact that this Star Destroyer showed depth.
Right.
And it's all pointing to Jack and his crew. Mm-hmm. So I really like that. I thought that spoke volumes about the size of the Star Destroyer. And now here we have Han Solo floating in space outside of an Imperial Star Destroyer. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't wait to read this issue based on that image.
He also looks a lot like Star-Lord, the mask that he's wearing.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. But he doesn't have his blood stripe on his leg.
You're absolutely right.
And so otherwise, honestly, I didn't really equate that to Han Solo because you don't see his face and there's no blood stripe. And yes, he is, you can tell he's kind of wearing bluish pants and the black vest with a white shirt. However, if someone hadn't told me that was Han, or if had I not read the words at last, Han Solo's showdown with Crimson Jack, I don't think I would have immediately saw Han Solo in this.
Well, there's the iconic black vest with a white shirt.
Right, but I'm saying he doesn't have the blood stripe. Had the blood stripe been there, I'd been like, oh, that's Han.
You know what? After 39 years, I've never noticed that.
Wow. Well, see, I happen to look straight at his legs and his butt.
You know what? I gotta say, secretly, I was looking at Crimson Jack's legs.
Right. Which we did have some comments in our Facebook group about this particular cover. And Chikafent does say, it's great to see that Crimson Jack is so manly that he doesn't need pants in space. He must be very proud of his legs.
Well, apparently he is.
Pants in space.
In his unitard.
Hashtag pants in space. That's just fun to say.
Very much so. Randy, any comments stick out to you?
Probably, I liked what Patty Hammond had to say. She said, all I can say about the cover is they sure make a point of highlighting Han's behind. Wonder if that was to get girls to buy the comics. And to that, I would just say, you get me. I'm finally getting through to somebody out there that this is what it's all about. It's about butts and boobs and everything like that. So good for you, Patty. I'm finally being a bad influence on somebody. So thank you for that.
Well, going back to issues 7, 8, and 9 with that character arc where Han Solo called together his Magnificent Seven, there was that woman character that was just falling out of her top. So I think back then we pretty much got the point that it's all about the butts and the boobs.
It's sex sells.
Yes. Now, Joey Letson says, my only comment is that Han's pants look incredibly tight. This is a common thread.
Yes.
Apparently, space makes pants shrink a few sizes, but look at Luke in the upper left. His pants are basically He-Man tights.
Hashtag tight tights too tight.
And this is Luke.
Just in every corner.
Yeah, in every corner of the issue, in every corner of the Marvel comics, there's Luke with his red lightsaber.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah.
And then Tom Hodges says, it's a late 70s comic book. His pants were tight the whole Marvel run, LOL.
By the way, have you ever seen Tom in tights?
Yes, we have.
It's a sight to behold.
Tom Hodges. He loves his very, very tight tights.
Wow. I didn't know this.
I think she's buying into it, Randy.
All right. Well, Scott Hume, I really liked his comment, and he says, this is an issue that means a lot to me, mainly because it is one of the first issues I got when I started working on collecting the full series in the late 80s. My first copy of this issue had significant water damage, but I got it in a 50-cent bin, so I was still happy with it until I was able to upgrade it. The story itself wasn't the greatest, but it still has great sentimental value for me. Welcome back, Classic Marvel Star Wars.
Oh, thank you, Scott. All right, let's wrap it up with Kai Charles. She says, I loved this as a kid, but now I can only think, how does Han Solo survive with his skin exposed in space? Which is a very good question that we're going to answer later on within the comic.
Yes.
Because that was another running question people had. Hey, how can they survive in outer space like this? Well, that does get answered.
And that was a selling point for the cover. You know that everybody went by this and said, like, now how is the skin surviving in outer space? I got to pick up this comic and find out.
Well, shall we dive into our initial thoughts of this issue? Let's see. Richard, why don't we start with you?
All right. Well, for me, I'm always happy to see Crimson Jack come back. And
as am I.
Now, I love seeing how Han's scheming mind works when he's wheeling and dealing with Jack. That was very interesting, and it showed that Han was more than a two-dimensional character. because we saw his thought process and how he could think things through, for better or for worse.
Okay.
Now, it also has some great twists that I won't spoil here. So
Okay. We'll talk about later.
Yeah. So, Sarah, what were your initial thoughts?
Well, I was surprised that Jolie really has a character arc in this episode. We see some of her backstory. It was almost it was an unexpected delve into a secondary character that I enjoyed. Without that backstory, we wouldn't understand her motivations at the end. So I enjoyed that, and I thought, once again, the compositions of a lot of these, like the artwork here is fantastic, just not the facial artwork.
Okay.
But the artwork of everything else, the overall composition and ships and everything is great.
Randy.
I really like this issue. It's a good tie-up. I mean, everything gets tied up in this storyline, and we move on to basically, I believe, an all-new story after this one. So they handled it really well. They tied things up. Like you said, they have a couple of twists that were unexpected in there, and so it was, in those terms, it was action-packed and everything you needed in it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Nice.
All right, now let's go into the story itself, Star Duel. Now, we open as Crimson Jack's stolen Star Destroyer has just been let go from the sonic jammer coming from the unnamed water planet below. Now, still at this point, after 3 issues, they have not named this planet.
I thought, system.
It's in the Drexel system,
okay.
but as it says right here in the narration box, the unnamed water planet. Just give it a name, would you?
Oh, I see. The sun is Drexel. Okay.
All right, now Crimson Jack is after blood. Han Solo's blood, since he led him into a trap in the last issue. Now, Randy, explain to us this front splash page.
Front splash page is actually confusing to me at first until I actually read the script on here. To me, first off, the Star Destroyer is actually supposed to be looking towards you, but it looks like it's flying away from you. Did you guys realize that?
Not until now.
Yeah,
no, but you're right.
The rockets are behind it where you can't see it. So,
Whoa.
This is kind of an optical illusion until you kind of look at the sides of the ship.
Dude, now I'm seeing it both ways.
Yeah, it's kind of trippy. So I couldn't tell if at first I thought it was flying away from us, and I thought what turned out to be the planet, I thought that was like a wormhole or something that they were going into hyperspace, because it looks like a black hole or something.
Yeah.
So I was a little confused by that. So it was a little, but at the same time, take that away, it's kind of ominous to have just the big Star Destroyer and this big, whether it's a planet or a black hole, just there in the darkness of space. It's kind of intriguing, so made me want to read it.
I see what you mean by this Star Destroyer is coming at the reader, and in the background is the water planet, and it has how many rings on there? There's the light blue, followed by the dark green, and the black center.
Well, there is a light green as well, a little bit.
Now,
but yeah.
That doesn't read so much like a water planet.
No, it's kind of odd. It's
now, is that for artistic reasons? Why didn't they just paint the whole thing blue to denote a water planet?
Yeah, we'd have to ask Janice Cohen about that.
All right, hold on. I got her voicemail, so we'll get back to her later on. Now, let's get back into the story. Jack's first mate, Jolie, gives her assessment of the damage of their ship, and Jack tells her, "You were itching to put a blaster to Mr. Solo's head from the second you saw him. I'm going to have to give you a chance to indulge your bloodthirsty streak to the fullest." Now, Jolie wants to prove that she's tougher than any man, but maybe she wants Han out of the way so she can have Leia all to herself. So Jack just told her, you know what, I'm going to give you this chance to do away with Han. Mm-hmm. And now, judging by these last couple of issues, we were all very confused as to Jolie's intentions.
Right.
Was she after Han? Did she have an eye for Leia?
That's true.
Now, when you two read this, did that thought go through your head too?
Honestly, it didn't, because as the issue plays on, it's made pretty clear she had a thing for Han. That's my assessment.
Okay. Now, leading into the next panel, there is a narration that says Jolie has confused feelings about Han Solo. Mm-hmm. So I guess that answers that.
Yes.
Okay, I see. Now we see the aftermath of the battle from last issue between the Dragon Lords and the Ship City Dwellers. Han knows that his past always has a way of catching up to him and knows it's only a matter of time before Crimson Jack comes after him. Because remember, Han led Jack into this trap in the first place. Now, Han calls down a 3PO to see how the Falcon's shaping up as it floats on the ocean surface, and Han asks, "What's the good word?" And 3PO responds, "It really depends on what language. After all, I am programmed to speak a rather wide variety." And Han yells back, "That's not what I meant, alloy head."
Wow.
Now, it took me a couple of seconds to understand the humor here. So Han asks 3PO, "What's the good word?"
Right.
And 3PO takes it literally. It really depends on what language. After all, I am programmed to speak a rather wide variety.
I thought it was cute.
That's good stuff. Acknowledge the good stuff here. All right. Randy, any comments on that?
I took a whole panel. They used a whole panel for that.
Yeah, but come on.
That's funny.
That's the one I meant, alloy head. That's good stuff. All right. Well, just then, a Y-Wing, which belongs to Crimson Jack's stolen fleet, races in and starts firing at the Millennium Falcon. And Han yells to 3PO, "Get down to the Falcon, you long-winded assembly of circuits."
Wow.
They're really big on the name calling in this issue.
Yes. Yeah.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, it's like.
And there's more to come in just a moment.
Okay.
Now, Han dives off of Korg's giant city ship.
Wait!
What?
Wait! I'm sorry, but after Han says, "Get down into the Falcon, you long-winded assembly of circuits," and 3PO says, "Getting down, sir." Can you imagine 3PO saying that?
That's very 70s reference.
And then he starts dancing.
I was going to say, yeah, where's the joke there?
Yes, I think that'd be awesome.
Exactly, where's the joke there?
Exactly.
Different kind of movie there, Andy. And now, Han dives off of Korg's giant city ship and into the water below, followed by Leia. And then Luke picks this moment to tell everyone, "Hey, I can't swim."
Yeah, what is up with this? And then they never see this out.
Yeah, exactly.
They never see that through. It's like, oh, well, and then in the next couple panels, all of a sudden, you see Han swimming, you see Leia swimming. You don't see Luke, but you see him in the next panel swimming. And it's like,
that's more like bobbing.
Yeah, no one helped him.
Well, you grew up on Tatooine.
Yeah.
How much of an opportunity do you have to learn how to swim?
That's true. But then
they're probably like, just dog paddle. And he's like, what's a dog?
Exactly.
I know what a duck is.
Yeah, I know exactly.
But what's a dog?
I guess you just tell him do what a duck's feet do.
Why didn't you say so before?
I did say so before.
Now, inside the Falcon, a frantic 3PO is yelling at Chewie, calling him a great hunk of hair.
Aww.
Oh, man.
Okay, I have a question, though. So, the Millennium Falcon is floating.
Yes.
How does this happen? How does it float?
Well, how does a boat float?
Well, yeah, but it's a big hunk of metal.
Yeah.
I guess it must be filled with enough air to.
Well, so is a
float.
boat.
Water displacement.
We were just on a cruise.
Right. I know. But
I see what you mean. It's a probably. Like
you guys are married, aren't you?
A 50-ton ship. Why doesn't it sink?
Yes.
Because
it's like a big bubble.
Yeah. Okay. I guess.
And it's got to be airtight to be in space, so it would be able to float and hold the water or the air.
All right, but now
I guess we do see the NC-17, the Enterprise, in water in Star Trek Into Darkness.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
All right, there you go. But hold on, we're not done with the name calling.
Okay.
Because after 3PO calls Chewie a great hunk of hair, he then calls R2 an overhead firing toggle.
Whoa.
What is that?
No, R2 is telling him to get it. Because he says, now what's this about an overhead firing toggle?
Oh, yes.
So R2 is telling him to get the overhead firing toggle.
Yeah.
He's not calling
it's not a name. It's not a name calling. It's telling him to do something.
I was just so used to everyone calling each other names that I read that as an insult. All right, my bad.
It's like the power converters.
My bad.
Yes.
All right, now moving right along. Han, Leia, and Luke make it to the Falcon and quickly blast off. As they enter space, they are met by more of Jack's stolen ships, which include a TIE bomber and another ship that could be an X-wing. Randy, what are you seeing there?
Well, I was actually going to call notice to that because timeline-wise, there was no TIE bombers yet.
We don't see
TIE bombers were in Empire Strikes Back, not in A New Hope, but yet they're here.
But that doesn't mean that they weren't around in New
Yeah.
Hope. It just means that we didn't have an opportunity to see them do anything in A New Hope.
I don't think they were even designed by then. So I feel like either this person, the artist, had what's it called when you can see into the future, or
Right.
they are already designing stuff for The Empire Strikes Back, and these guys got to have a look at some things.
Yeah, I don't think Lucas would have let them spoil something in this comic. I just believe, well, of course,
His imagination?
yeah.
Really?
Well, he may have seen, like you said, a design for this TIE bomber and used it, and Lucas just didn't know or didn't care. But just because we didn't see it in Star Wars doesn't mean they don't exist at this point.
Right.
We can't see all the ships.
But I see what Randy is
Oh
saying.
no, I'm saying real world
Yeah.
designing.
At the time that this comic was created,
Right.
we have not seen Empire Strikes Back to see any new ship designs.
Right.
So
Because you remember when Empire Strikes Back came out and you saw a TIE bomber, you're like, oh my god,
Yeah.
what's that?
Not me. I don't pay attention to ships. I went, oh my god, Han and Leia are kissing.
Yeah.
All right, but now, what's your feeling on this other ship? Because I can't make this out. Is that an X-wing?
Like yellowish
Looks
ship
more
in
like
the
a Colin
background.
Cantwell X-wing.
It actually kind of looks like a Klingon ship, sort of.
Like the bird of prey thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about.
it does kind of look like that. Sorry, Richard.
All right, well, you know what? Han
Remember
still...
in Star Trek 3, they had the ship that Doc from Back to the Future was in.
Doc Brown?
Doc Brown, yeah. Remember he was a Klingon?
I do recall
No.
that. Don't recall the ship.
I never saw Star Trek 3.
See, it was it looks like a vulture.
Oh, okay.
The ship does.
Isn't that from Buck Rogers?
I don't remember that.
Well, okay, so maybe, you know what? Maybe it's just a new ship.
Maybe.
We're so used to everything being something in the Star Wars
Right.
universe, we never gave consideration that maybe it's a new ship.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
There you go.
Question answered.
Like Snoke.
That's very true. All right, now back to the story.
Yes.
And so they have the TIE bomber in this new ship and the Y-Wing still on the tail of the Millennium Falcon. Now we find that the Y-Wing is being piloted by Jolie.
That's right.
And she yells out orders to her wingmen, and they bark back at her,
Yes.
saying that she doesn't have to keep proving that she's their flight commander.
Yeah.
Now,
what the heck is that about?
I'm not sure where that's coming from. She's telling them orders. If she's the flight commander, that's her job, you numbskulls.
Yes.
But that served as an opportunity for Jolie to slip back in time when she was a little girl. And now we go to a flashback where her father is fighting off an Imperial attack. Mm-hmm. And the dad tells Jolie's mom that he's leaving and can't take any excess baggage that will slow him down, referring to Jolie and her mom.
Yeah, and then upon hearing this information, well, Jolie's mom says, "We'll help you. We'll fight with you." And Jolie's father says, "Forget it, woman. You're not good enough."
Ooh.
And those words rung in Jolie's head because at that point, the father leaves. And the girl and mother were left alone, and her mom dies. And then Jolie survives this attack.
And Jolie's about 8 years old here in this flashback, so she's very impressionable.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So at that moment, in that one panel we are looking at in the omnibus on page 269, Jolie decides she was going to be a man-hater, always ready to prove that she is good enough and better than men.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at this.
Yes.
Marvel is way ahead of themselves.
Yeah, way ahead of their time.
Yeah. Now, this is what's very confusing to Jolie because she's confused as to why Han has stirred up all these feelings in her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as she knows, Han, that's what he's best at. But that is why she must put an end to him and show the galaxy that she can write the end to any man.
Right. And stand on
Whoa.
her own as a woman.
Whoa, so she's got feelings for him. So her thought process is, I'm going to kill you because of this.
Right?
Yeesh.
That's kind of effed up.
Yeah, she's just screaming for some therapy. All right, now, with that, Randy, let's cut into a commercial break.
All right.
So, like in the last episode of Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics, we thought it'd be a good idea to talk about some of these ads from the original run. And Randy, this was really your impetus. This is something that you really wanted to do, which I'm very glad that you did, because looking back, at these ads. They're hilarious. So which one have you chosen for us today?
They absolutely are. And if you haven't watched the last episode or listened to it, I express how they're so important to what comic books were, and I guess still are to a degree. But back in the 70s and the 80s, these ads, like you say, are hilarious, and they are, some of them are just wrong, and they're pretty amazing. They're so important. So the ad that I chose this week was almost kind of difficult because it was such a random amount of ads in here. Everything from the Bad News Bears Go to Japan,
whoa,
to an ad for that, to Hostess just to get free baseball cards, in which I figured, this is Star Wars, so people aren't interested in baseball really.
my hand is raised.
Then there's the muscles. Yeah, muscle stuff, and of course all the little tiny ads that you can't even really read very well because the ink is like so, blurred and everything.
Well, the font is like a 0.6.
Yeah, it's so small, so I couldn't even get into it. But some of those ads are some of the best, but we won't go there. And still, not yet, no sea monkeys. And when the sea monkeys make an appearance, we're going to talk about the sea monkeys.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
So
I'm glad to hear this.
What I chose was a classic ad for the Sales Leadership Club. Now, this is one of 3 different ads in this comic book alone of a club that children can get involved in and sell merchandise door to door to get tons of prizes or cash. So you can join SLC for super prizes or cash. And of course, they have pictures of all the great prizes that you can get, from a calculator to fins and a snorkel to a radio control car to a bicycle, which I'm convinced nobody ever got.
And a cassette recorder.
Skateboards. Oh, I like up here the color TV video game that's connected all in one thing. That's always great. Ham radios.
A pottery wheel outfit?
A pottery wheel outfit. A hairdryer.
Whoa.
How many of these items are no longer relevant in today's society?
Yeah, I'm going to say the cassette recorder.
This analog alarm clock.
Yep. Oh, there's a radio horn light. Wait, what? I'm not sure what that is.
A Kodak pocket camera with a flash.
Yeah.
4-piece stereo. Don't need that. Don't need a electronic memory calculator. That's all on your phone.
And what are these? Are those iPhones?
Nope, they're walkie-talkies.
Now, Randy, as a kid, did you ever buy into any ad like this?
I did.
You did it!
Yes.
Oh my god! Okay, story.
Yes.
What happened?
It was. I just didn't always saw it, and so I thought, hey, I give a chance to do something, and so. And if you notice under the pictures, it says, let's say for the calculators, sell only 8 boxes, or for the 40 channel CB AM radio, sell only 12 boxes. Well, what this program is you basically, for the one that I did, it was for greeting cards and stationery. And what they do is they send you like a sample box, and they tell you as a kid to go door to door and try to sell this stuff to people around your neighborhood. So if you sold X amount of cards, then you can get either X amount of cash, which wasn't very much, or you get points towards a prize. And so the thing is, though, is that like for a box, like to sell 8 boxes, you have to sell something like 30 items for one box.
Okay. So it's not 8 items that you sell. It's actually 30 per box.
Yeah. And
that makes sense.
And that's being, nice about it. I mean, it's like you have to sell an incredible amount of junk, basically, to people in your neighborhood. So, but again, looking back, they're encouraging children to go door to door in neighborhood as strangers by themselves and sell as much of the stuff as they can, which means you're going to expand the amount of houses that you go to. Now, interestingly enough, this time of history in the United States during the 70s and 80s, a lot of child abductions going on in the news.
Whoa.
And I can't help but think there might have been a connection here.
Oh, whoa, I never thought of that.
Because you don't see these ads in the comics anymore, as they shouldn't, because this is a terrible idea.
And apparently there were no child labor laws back then either.
No, not at all. And that's the thing. So I went around the neighborhood, and luckily we lived in a decent neighborhood, and I sold a little bit. I mean, you knock door to door, and I mean, you're saying, "Oh, you want to buy some greeting cards?" Like, what?
Right.
Most of the time they said no, but if they did, a couple people did. So, I mean, I probably would spend 2 weeks on my feet going door to door to door, and I probably made $3.
Aww.
And did you use that $3 wisely?
I don't even know.
You bought more Star Wars comics.
Probably. Something like that.
As Howard Chaykin would say, you fed the machine.
I did. I fed the machine.
You know what? There's an interesting feature film concept in that, where kids read these articles, these ads, go to sell door to door, and there's a whole rash of abductions. There's something in that. Yeah,
I mean, it's really amazing when you think about that, and all these ads, and they have pictures like the one that we're looking at right now. Has 2 kids in superhero outfits. So they're romanticizing the whole idea. You could be a superhero if you go out and sell this stuff.
Yeah.
And then on the back page, there's a black and white one for a different company saying, call now, toll free. And it has a kid with a phone calling.
Wow. My
and then
goodness.
There's another one in here that's for, it's Adventures of Grit Boy. And it shows a kid going door to door, same type of concept, selling basically a newspaper called Grit, which they're trying to say that everybody knows what Grit is and everybody will buy it from you, but it's showing a kid doing it. So it's really, really kind of icky.
Glad the times have changed.
Yes.
Yes.
Or have they? Maybe they haven't.
Yeah. And then 3 pages later, is the muscle one, get big in 20 weeks. It's just really weird times, man.
Wow.
In the 70s.
All right. Now, can't wait to hear what Randy's got to say about those sea monkeys now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. With that, let's cut back to our story. Now, Jolie and her wingmen try to drive the Millennium Falcon into Jack's Star Destroyer's tractor beam. And Han says, now get this, maneuvering out of this won't be any worse than threading our way through the fire rings of Fornax.
Oh.
Did you hear what I just said? Did you hear what I said?
Yes, we did.
The fire rings of Fornax. And I can just imagine a young Bob Roth going, gotta put that in my mental Rolodex.
Just what in the 5 fire rings of Fornax are you doing here?
Now, from the Falcon gunport, Luke destroys one of Jack's ships. Jolie scrapes the hull of the ship, shaking Luke like he was a can of paint at Home Depot.
That is a great description. I couldn't have done it better myself. It's really actually drawn very well to get that feeling across.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was impressed with this panel, although I thought it was Han.
Well, no, look at the part in his hair. It's in the front, like Luke. Han's got a side part.
Okay. Wow. You paid that much attention?
Yes, I do.
That's so
Of
cute.
course I do. That's what I'm here for. All right, Sarah, from here, do you want to take it away?
Yes, I do. So, Jack breaks into the Falcon's communication channel and tells Han that he's about to open fire. With his back up against the corner, Han tells Jack that he has downloaded all of his navigational charts while on his ship. So, if Crimson Jack opens fire, he will never find his way home because all those charts are on the Millennium Falcon.
I think it's good planning. It's just, this reminds me of a lot of Pirates of the Caribbean, actually, the Jack Sparrow. Even though this Richard actually inspired the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Right? See what I'm talking about?
Jack Sparrow is actually Han Solo from the Marvel Comics.
Well, see, that wasn't so hard, was it, Randy?
Wait, why do you say that? Is there a moment?
Oh, well, just saying how, the taking precautions or moves so that the other person can't kill you, because if they kill you, then they kill themselves.
Oh, right. So look for that opportune moment kind of thing.
So
Okay.
Jack Sparrow's always doing those type of things to get himself out of a jam. Parlay.
Now, R2 and 3PO have not been able to get the Falcon's gyro control module fixed, which would have helped the Falcon to escape, so Han makes a deal with Crimson Jack. He needs a part from Jack's ship to fix that gyro thing, and then he would give Jack the navigational charts.
That's a good plan.
Mm-hmm.
But can they be trusted? Aboard the Millennium Falcon, Han prepares to meet Jack out in deep space to make the trade. But before he leaves, he tells Luke, "Now look the other way so I can kiss the princess goodbye without feeling guilty."
Uh-huh.
Let's discuss this.
Okay, good, because I wrote that down. Now, to me, this line kind of it stems from A New Hope when Han is giving Luke grief over, like, I don't know, what do you think? A princess and a guy like me? You know, and Luke says, no, way too quickly. So I think this is kind of meant to be the same banter to Luke to rile him up. Although, you know, to blatantly say, oh, I'll kiss the princess is wow.
But he's telling Luke to look the other way. Why not just do it right in front of him?
Well, Han, I think, is more talk than action at this point. When it comes, he's just saying that to rile Luke.
Right. Now, Sarah, from your female point of view, what does Leia's expression say? What is she thinking?
She is none too happy about this teasing.
Is she in on this?
No.
Is she happy? She's looking forward to it?
What's interesting, she's giving mixed messages because her eyebrows are going, mm-mm, but her lips are perked up and pouty, ready for a kiss.
She's like, you don't tell somebody you're going to kiss them, you just do it.
Yep. But interesting, a couple panels later, we see Jolie, and the eyes and the eyebrows are like the exact same.
Yeah, you know what? I thought that was Leia based on those eyebrows.
I know. Yeah, Leia and Jolie's eyebrows and eyes are depicted the same exact way.
Randy, any comments on this?
Well, I think that the Han's gonna score somehow.
Wow.
Yeah, it may take him until The Empire Strikes Back, but or the way you're talking, right after Return of the Jedi.
Well, we're not gonna spoil anything.
Okay.
Until we get to the end of the comic.
All right.
Okay.
Good deal. Now, before Jack can leave his ship, he is told that Jolie is in deep trouble and needs help getting back to their ship safely. Well, Jack's got his priorities in place, so he says that she's going to make it back on her own if she's good enough.
Now, wait a minute.
Oh, wait a minute.
Where have we heard that phrase before?
She's
Trigger word.
Got some daddy issues there, and she wants to kill any man who might even say that phrase. Oh, blood is boiling.
Yeah, so we see the glare in her eyes, in her Y-wing, that she is not too happy with that.
Not at all. Now, Han and Jack meet outside Jack's Star Destroyer in deep space, and the question is answered that Kai had posed about the cover art. How are they surviving with just a breath mask in deep space? Well, because they are in the Star Destroyer's magnetic field. I'm not sure how that works, but Han and Crimson Jack are in the field of the Star Destroyer, this magnetic field, and it's protecting them from the harm of outer space.
Well, it's Star Wars science, and Star Wars science and physics always suggest that if they say something's possible scientifically in Star Wars, then it is.
Oh, there you go. All right, Kai. I hope you're happy with that answer.
They say that you can survive in a magnetic field out in space, then you can.
Makes sense to me.
That is very sound logic, Randy.
Yes.
All right, now, as expected, things go sour really fast between Han and Crimson Jack, even after a heart-wrenching conversation between them about how they would make great partners. Now, Jack tightens the magnetic field around them so Han can't escape.
He can't get back to the Falcon.
No.
Right?
Yeah. He's caught in this vacuum. Oh, we should have seen this coming. Now, Han fires his blaster at Jack. Now, Jack's crew suddenly jetpacks out from his ship. So there was a trap there all along. You know what, Han? That's what you call karma.
Oh.
Han set Crimson Jack into this trap. Well, Crimson Jack set Han into the trap. It's the way the world works. Now, do you think this is the end for Han Solo?
Uh-oh.
Do we? Well, hell hath no fury like a scorned woman. Just then, Jolie zooms onto the scene in her limping Y-wing and blasts Jack's crew to bits.
Wow.
And Jack has the nerve to call her a traitor. Did he forget what he just did to her moments ago?
Right.
And Jolie calls out, and I love this part.
Is this good enough, Captain? Is it?
And thus, her character arc has been completed.
Mm-hmm. But she doesn't kill Crimson Jack.
Instead, she fires her torpedoes at Jack's cruiser and destroys the ship and his whole pirating operation.
Dun, dun, dun.
So once again, Marvel is decades ahead of themselves with their expanded universe in girl power. Who saves the day? But
Jolie.
a girl.
Yep.
Exactly. Now, any bets what's going to happen? Now Jack's all alone. He's got no army. He's got no ships.
Jack's floating in space. There's no army. His cruiser's just been destroyed, what happens to the magnetic field then?
That's a good point.
Yes.
Randy?
Well, if they say in Star Wars that you can survive without a magnetic field, then you can.
They never said that, though. So Jack's legs are exposed, but before that can cause him harm in space.
No, leave the legs alone, please. Leave the legs alone.
Yeah, but I think we got to call notice like this. It's pretty cold.
Yeah.
So
let's explain what happens here.
So Crimson Jack is like gone. The best pirating operation in the galaxy destroyed because of a mad woman and the fast-talking Carillion. I was far enough from the blast to survive, but everyone else is gone. So he's like, oh my God, his world is over. He's just like, he knows it's over, and he's just floating there with bare legs and everything. And Han Solo says, "Not quite, Jack. Thanks to Jolie, I'm still around." Jack snaps back into himself for a second and says, "Solo, I might have known it'd come down to just you and me." And Han Solo says coldly, "No, Jack, just me," and just fires into his chest.
Han shot first.
Yeah.
And one of the most fun characters to ever cosplay in the Star Wars universe has come to an end. Now, please, a moment of silence for Crimson Jack.
What is that? Well, of course, the episode is not over.
Because, Randy?
Meanwhile,
down below on the Falcon, Han and Leia pull Jolie from the wreckage of her Y-Wing. Leia says,
"She claimed to hate men, but where you were concerned, Han, I had the feeling."
With that, Han gives the woman who just saved his life and freed the galaxy from ever being pirated by Crimson Jack her first and final kiss.
Oh, so poetic.
With that, the Millennium Falcon zooms into deep space and onto another adventure and another story arc. The end.
So see, Han scored. She's dead, but he scored.
Oh, that's so wrong.
Yeah.
All
right.
I have a logistical thing here that I don't know if you thought about this, though, but
Okay.
when they pulled her body from the wreckage, right, and searched through where are they searching through the wreckage? It's not like they could pull a Y-Wing on board the Millennium Falcon.
Well, apparently, they have a cargo hold.
Maybe the cockpit of the Y-Wing had jettisoned away from the rest of the body, and that's what they pulled in to their cargo bay.
Maybe, I don't know. But
So
I like Leia's face as he's kissing her. Like she's like,
yes.
She's dead, right?
Well,
that's gross.
Aw. And then why does Leia have a beauty mark? What's up with that?
They probably just splashed some ink by.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like Leia's looking at them.
You know what?
Kissing.
To get away from this whole gross conversation that Randy has initiated, I'm judging to believe that she's still alive, and that's in that one panel where Han is giving her a kiss goodbye. All right, now after we've gone through the issue, Randy, what is your overall thoughts? Have they changed since the initial thoughts?
No, I think this is a good tying up issue. I think that the story arc of Jolie is good because she's a pretty pointless character from the beginning, except for the the innuendo part of the whole thing. But they actually gave her substance in this, and I liked that that they actually killed somebody, off, in Crimson Jack. It has a finality to it, so that we can move on to something else. They just did it good to have a big impact,
Right. I am kind of sad that they killed Jolie off. That would have been interesting to have her stow away on the ship and see where these relationships go.
Oh, a love triangle.
Right?
Oh. Now, that's what I was thinking. Well, first of all, I forgot that Crimson Jack died in this series.
Oh.
So when I saw that panel of Han blasting his blaster at him, and his arms and legs are spread back from the power of this laser blast, that's pretty gruesome there.
Yeah.
And we can see the side of Jack, and his whole torso has been shredded. Yikes. I just noticed this, that the blast had gone through his body, through his air tank, and out the other side.
Yikes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I didn't notice that either.
Yikes. So I was kind of sad. I was sad to know that Jack's gone, because I would love to see the return of this character. And then I thought that Jolie would be a recurring character, kind of like Ventress in the Clone Wars. She's freed from the grips of Count Dooku and the Sith, so now she's her own free agent. Now that we've built up her character, and she was a man-hater, wanted to kill all men, well, maybe things would have turned. It would have been a really fun, bigger character arc to explore.
I agree.
Let's also remember what we talked about at the beginning of this episode with the branding issue. They needed to tie it up and move on to new things for the possibility of possibly toys, possibly anything. They just wanted to get back to focusing on the characters. Now, I have not looked ahead to the next issues, but one character who has obviously not been in any of these is the main guy, Darth Vader.
Ooh.
Right.
So, and he does show up in the comics. I don't know if it's next issue or not, but branding-wise, they need to get that guy involved.
Oh, well, very much so. But they could have put Jolie aside and used her later on.
Right.
But you know what? That'll never be. All right. Now, with all of that said, Randy, going back through this issue, what is your favorite line of dialogue?
My favorite dialogue is when Jolie, I'm sorry, I'm trying to take this from Sarah, but when she says, "Is this good enough, Captain? Is it?"
Yeah, she doesn't say Captain. She says Cap'n, like Cap'n Crunch.
Yeah. Yeah, I just liked the drama in it, and it's like so cinematic, with Han Solo. It's very much reminded me of Han Solo coming at the end of A New Hope.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, very much
let's
so.
blow this kid and get out of here.
Aww.
So it's very much the same way.
Okay.
Well, Sarah, in a female's point of view, how do you think she said that line? Is this good enough, Captain?
Oh, okay.
Cap'n?
Oh, she would say, "Is this good enough, Captain?"
Okay, that's good.
Yes. She would
I can see that.
Because those are the words that have an effect on her.
Right.
Now, similarly, I'm going to take my favorite line and turn it into, oh, you mean the line with the most impact? What is the line with the most impact? I'm gonna Zootopia-ize it.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And ask another question. So the line with the most impact for me is on page 268, and it's when Jolie is just giving orders to her crew, and they say, "We know our job. You don't have to keep proving that you're our flight commander every time." It's like, that's such a
male thing to say?
Yeah, such a sexist statement. It's like they would never question a male commander. Like, they would just do what he said. So I just find that interesting and the most impactful, line to think about.
Okay. All right, good deal.
Especially after coming off a Geek Girl Con. So.
Oh, okay, now it all makes sense.
All this in my head. So,
right.
There you go. What is your favorite line, Richard?
My favorite line of dialogue is when Han says to 3PO, "That's not what I meant, alloy head." He calls him alloy head.
That's pretty funny.
I love that. Just all the bantering back and forth between Han and 3PO and Chewie. But that right there, that line says it all.
Nice.
Now, Randy, what is your favorite panel from this issue?
My favorite panel is Crimson Jack being blown away by Han. It's really, it's pretty gruesome, but it's like, there's just a lot of action in it, and it just, tons of storytelling, and I like how his arms are out to the side, like it's, type
Nice.
of thing, and it's just kind of like very, it's very dramatic, and it's really, I wasn't sad, but it's just, it was like, I was like, wow, damn.
Mm-hmm.
Like Han is like,
dramatic.
that's like, yeah, that was like even more brutal than shooting Greedo, because Greedo's at least, telling Han that he's going to kill him.
Right.
And the scene before it, Han could have blasted him the whole time, but he waited for him to turn towards him so he can say his line, "No, Jack, just me." Bam! That's like old gangster movie stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And Han's no coward. He's not going to shoot someone in the back.
No.
All right. Now, Sarah, what is your favorite panel?
Why don't you go first? Because, you go first, Richard.
All right. I'm going to page 272 in the omnibus, and there's Crimson Jack all posing. And this was the picture we had used when designing my Crimson Jack cosplay outfit.
As a reference.
Yes. So when I saw that, it's like, oh, there it is! That's the picture!
Uh-huh.
So that picture, to me, just stuck out, and I found myself just looking at it going, the memories. But now, I also have to give an honorable mention to this panel on page 273 with R2 and 3PO on the Millennium Falcon. And they're fixing the gyro thingamajig. And it's just such an awesome shot, because we've seen R2 out on a ship's hull in the Phantom Menace fixing the ship. But now we see R2 and 3PO out there. And that's something we've never seen before.
Okay.
So I love that panel, and it's probably one of my favorites we've seen up to this point, because it's characters we know in a situation we've never seen them.
Oh, okay. Now, that just speaks to the power of this issue and all the different fun panels, because I had picked 3 different panels thinking that you guys would pick one of mine and I'd have to just pick one. So now you didn't choose any of my 3. So there's so many good panels in here. So, I'll go with the one that struck me first, which is on page 271 of the omnibus. And that is, it's a bottom panel, and it's the Millennium Falcon and the Star Destroyer out in space with the son of Drexel right behind the Star Destroyer. And it's a beautiful image there. And what's happening is, on the Falcon, they're realizing that the gyro control module has been damaged. And, so I think that's just a pretty shot. And then as for an action shot, so I'm going to pick 2.
Okay.
I like page 275.
Nice.
Where Han and Crimson Jack are fighting in space. And it's it's a vertical panel. So Han is shooting up away from Crimson Jack, and they're fighting. They're having their little dogfight in space with their masks. And the Star Destroyer is behind them.
It's very reminiscent of Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
The way he's flying up from his jetpacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the jet. Yeah, it's really neat. So I really like that. And there's so many things I like on here. It's really cool.
Well, good. I'm glad you're appreciating this artwork.
Yeah.
All right. Now, finally, Randy, what is your favorite, most non-Star Wars moment of dialogue in this issue?
Well, I went through the whole thing a couple times, and I got to say, for the most part, this felt very like it could fit in to the storyline. From they could make a movie out of this, and they would fit with the storyline, except for the fact that they get a little chippy at each other. There's a lot of insults and stuff, which is weird considering they just survived a huge battle. You think they'd be a little happy towards each other. But I think the most non-Star Wars thing is that, and it kind of bothered me, is that Han Solo kept calling Luke and Leia kids. Now, I know he called Luke kid. That's cool, whatever. But he kept calling Leia a kid, too. And that seemed kind of weird. It seemed a little out of character, and it made how old do you think Han is to them?
Right.
And he's interested in her, so he's still going to call her a kid? That's kind of weird.
Well, he is.
I think it's boosting his own ego, calling them kids, makes him feel more of a grown-up.
Well, it just didn't feel like his character to me.
Okay. All right, Sarah, what is your most non-Star Wars moment or line of dialogue?
So I think just overall, it's the fact that Luke couldn't swim. and the fact that doesn't really add anything to the story. They never pursued that at all. And I know they were just getting our characters up into space so they could have this space battle. But why even bring that up? So, and I know what you guys said does make sense, the fact that Luke comes from a desert planet, so when would he have learned to swim? But I just don't think it adds anything to the story. So I'll just say that. Because overall, I do agree with you, Randy, that everything seemed to fit really well.
I think it adds just that one more layer of tension. They're all trying to get away, And yeah, here's Luke saying, I can't swim. So there's that one more dramatic edge.
Okay.
Well, here's an even further question. If he's from Tatooine and there's no oceans, there's no lakes or anything, would he even know what the word swim is? Is there any context where he would ever need the word swim?
That's a good question, though.
But, well, you know what? He was in water in the Star Wars Holiday Special. So in a deleted scene, he may have said to R2 and 3PO, hey, how did we get from here to there? And 3PO said, we swim. Well, 3PO, I don't get it. What is that? And 3PO explains it to him, but that scene was cut, which would have made this more impactful.
Okay.
Did we all follow that logic?
Yes.
All
Said
right.
Sarah with her eyes glazed over. No, I'm just kidding. All right. What is your favorite un-Star Wars moment?
All right. The part we just talked about where before Han leaves to meet Crimson Jack in outer space, he tells Luke, now look the other way so I can kiss the princess goodbye without feeling guilty. That's just not a Han Solo or Star Wars moment.
Right,
So
right.
nothing about that added up.
Like, if anything, he would say it without Leia in the room, but the fact that she was right there.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That makes sense.
Why would he have to feel guilty?
Right.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's not like he knows that Luke and Leia are brother and sisters, so he feels a little weird about that.
No.
So, I don't know.
Okay.
All right. Now, with all of that said, let's wrap the show up by thanking everyone for joining us on Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics, where we just went through issue number 15, Star Duel.
Now we'll see everyone back for issue number 16, titled The Hunter.
Will they stick with that title? Stay tuned and find out. Probably not.
Now we want to thank Rob Dellinger for writing the jingle for this show. And you know what, Randy, where can our listeners find you next?
Yes, I have. You can find me, of course, at my website, randymartinez.art. That is actually also new since we've been doing a podcast here. I switched from randymartinez.net to randymartinez.art. A lot more easy to find me. And then if you find me on social media, anywhere you go now, you guys will be very proud of me. It's all just one thing, Randy Martinez 40.
Oh, okay,
on
great.
Anything from Instagram, Twitter to Facebook, Randy Martinez 40. Isn't that good?
Cool.
Organized?
That's good.
Everything?
Yeah, what does 40 stand for?
40 was my number in high school for basketball.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Oh, the circle is now complete.
exactly.
Yes. Now, if you want to talk to us about classic Marvel Star Wars comics or anything else related to Star Wars and Disney, you can tweet at us. We are at SkywalkingPod for Twitter and on Instagram. And on Facebook, every time we do an episode, we post the cover of this episode art and ask for your comments, and that is only in our Facebook group. So if you want to join that, you can go to Facebook and search Skywalking Through Neverland group and request to join. And then you just answer the 2 questions that pop up before we'll let you in.
And the most important thing we have to bring up on each and every episode, please, everyone, tweet out #MakeWhoJibsCanon.
Yes.
This will happen. It almost happened on the Freemaker Adventures.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have to make it happen, actually happen, in a Star Wars film.
That would be amazing.
Yes. #MakeWhoJibsCanon.
Now, would you be okay if it turned up in a new Star Wars comic? Because I
You know what?
honestly think that would be
Yes,
cool.
because that is a very good idea, and because it all rolls into the actual canon now,
Right.
it is canon, so therefore, Who Jibs would be canon.
Yes.
So yes, I think in a comic book would be very nice.
I think it would be very poetic.
Isn't that where they come from to begin with?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we'll find that out in about 60 more issues.
So how many more years?
So we should have that one out probably after episode 9 and before the Salacious Crumb standalone movie.
Exactly.
All right, for Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics, this is Richard.
This is Sarah,
And this is Randy.
and we're all saying
For
Bakwam.
#MakeWhoJibsCanon.
Skywalking through classic Marvel.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's been 4 months.
Has it?
Has it been that long?
Our last episode went out in June.
Whoa.
Wow.
It's summer.
Yeah,
Con
we did the same
season.
thing last year.
Yeah.
But it's the Lego thing.
Oh, but it's canon adjacent.
Yeah.
So I
What does
still
that
get
mean?
those points. It's
What
not.
does that even mean? That
It's-
sounds like almost pregnant.
Well, like the characters. So, like, canon adjacent means that any characters from the Star Wars universe that show up have to be alive during that time in the normal Star Wars timeline. But anything that happens to the characters that were created just for this particular show doesn't really affect the real Star Wars universe.
So it's kind of like a parallel universe.
Yes.
I don't know. It just
It's like
sounds
an alternate timeline, sort
It
of.
sounds like generic cereal, like Captain Crunch versus like Captain Crunchy.
Oh, believe me, there's nothing generic about the Freemaker Adventures. Great series to dive into. Time heals all wounds.
And with that, I think we should go back in time and discuss this issue number 15.
Whoa.
Right?
Very, very subtle, Sarah.
I don't understand where you're going, Sarah. What do you mean?
Wait, this episode, what's the title of it? Classic Marvel Star Wars Comics number 15?
That's right. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's move on to Star Duel, or
No,
now
say
what-
it again.
Yeah.
Oh, Randy.
Oh, I lost my place here.
Meanwhile.
Oh, meanwhile.
Nice.
All right. So Randy, any other comments stick out to you?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't ready for that. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
All right, now continuing on with the story, Jack's first mate Jolie gives her assessment of the damage of their ship and tells Jack.
You were itching to put a
Oh,
blast.
I'm sorry. Jack tells her. All right, now to dive back into the story, Jack's first mate Jolie gives her assessment of the damage of their ship, and Jack tells her.
Oh, you were itching to put a blaster to Mr. Solo's head from the second you saw him.
No, I messed that up too. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. My bad. One more time. Hashtag Frankenhoojibs.
What are those?
You gotta ask Randy.
I don't know. I'm still
Am I making a
trying to
t-shirt?
figure it out.
What?
Everyone watch Randy do his live
It's
drawings.
a Richard thing.
Oh.
He's dying to do a Frankenhoojib.
Yeah, Randy, why don't you plug that you've been doing some live on
Oh yeah,
Facebook?
yeah. So one thing that I am trying to start doing more is having live streaming going on in my world. Again, we talked about this earlier in the episode about you adjust or you die, and so you got to do that as an artist. And so one of the things, the way you get out there is by doing streaming now. And I went to the studio of my friend Lee Cosi, who's also does Star Wars artwork here in San Diego, and he has a whole Twitch thing going there. He's got all kinds of cameras. That guy is all teched out. And I went there and I drew live with him and in front of all of his fans. And it was really fun. It was really cool. I got into it. And then I realized I could kind of do the same thing on Facebook until I can get my Twitch account set up. And Lee's going to help me out with all that. Really good guy. But until then, I'm practicing on Facebook. So Facebook, I'm trying to daily do a warm-up drawing and get faster and faster at it. So for this month, I'm asking people to give me suggestions for Halloween subject matter, since we are in the month of Halloween. And so far, we have done the Great Pumpkin from Peanuts, my own terrifying version, where the pumpkins around the Great Pumpkin are eating the Peanuts characters. And today we did Beetlejuice. So I would love to have more people's suggestions of what to do. I don't pick everybody's, but it's fun to see what everybody's thinking about. And Richard keeps saying Frankenhoojib.
Hoojib?
Frankenhoojibs.
What he said. And but
You keep resisting.
Well, see, here's the thing. I'm working on projects right now that are Star Wars, so I'm kind of taking the opportunity to not draw Star Wars. So as much as I like everybody's ideas, and you do have a good idea, it's very funny. I do.
He's just not going to do it, okay?
Yeah, I've gotten like Yoda trick or treating, and I love all the ideas, but I kind of like want to take an opportunity to do something other than Star Wars because it's just good for the old brain to get out of that world every once in a while. So.
Aw.
Well, great. Well, it's a great way for fans to actually communicate and connect with you as you're as you're painting and drawing. That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's the coolest thing. I have an iPad set up right above where I work, so I look up every once in a while and I see people are writing, and I talk back to you via the camera, and I play some music as we're going along, which is always good too. And it's really cool. So I'm trying to do it, like I said, just for 1 hour a day. I'm trying to be consistent with the time of day. But the good thing is that I can also post it on Facebook. So you can actually go to Facebook and watch the video without actually participating live. But you can actually make comments as the video is going. And if you make comments, I get notices. So I want everybody to know, if you're not watching live, make comments. I will get back to you typing it back. So make your comments whenever.
Awesome.
That's great. That's a fun way for people to actually have a conversation with you
and interact. And we know how important that is. I mean, when we do our Facebook Live every week and our YouTube Live, it really helps us connect with the Skywalkers. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
so great job, Randy.
I always like to comment with you guys and play around when you're on. It's a lot of fun. And by the way, speaking of that, I wanted to make sure, Sarah, that you didn't think that I was like making fun or anything when I said I thought you were a clown.
Oh, no. That's
Because,
right. You
like,
were watching our live feed.
I'm afraid of clowns, number one. I don't like them. But number two, like you had told me it's from Nightmare Before Christmas.
Right.
I've only seen that movie one time. And a lot of people are like, why? How can you not watch that movie? It's great. It may be, but for whatever reason, because of like all the moving parts and all the little curly cues all over the place, like it gives me like the worst headache, and I feel like I'm gonna have a seizure. I'm not joking about this. I have physical issues watching that movie, or like Corpse Bride, or any of those Burton movies that have all that stuff going on.
How funny.
I literally can't watch those movies, so I'm really not familiar with many of those characters. So when I said I thought you were a clown, I literally thought you were dressed as a clown. I didn't know you're a character from A Nightmare. And
I was Sally.
Randy just sees clowns everywhere he looks.
I know. Lately, especially with American Horror Story right now, it's freaking me out.
Are you watching that?
Oh yeah. I just because I hate clowns doesn't mean I don't like to be scared.
Oh, you know what? Hold on 1 second. Hey. Hey, I'll call you right back.
All right.
Bye.
Who was that, Bozo?
No, yeah, this is Randy. Oh yeah, Randy. No, he's no longer in Hollywood. He's in San Diego. Hold on, Mr. Clown. I'll ask him what his address is. Hey, Randy, for no reason in particular, what's your home address?
Yeah, the ocean.
All right, there's someone with a telegram on their way down there right now to see you.
Yeah,
they're not very happy.
There's a pier out on Ocean Beach. Walk to the very end of it and just keep walking.
Nice.
Oh, you just made the clown gods very upset. When will it stop?
Well, they should like that kind of thing.
All right. With that, I gotta go and take this phone call now. But another great episode. Thank you for everything and sharing all your insights as always.
Thank you.
Thanks,
it was great
Randy.
being with you guys. All right, guys.
Absolutely.
You'll have to do it more often.
Absolutely.
Once every 3 months.
Right?
All right. Until then.
Talk to you later.
All right. Later, guys. Bye.
Bye.